I've decided to look at my top 10 favorite boss battles in video games. What's an original topic, eh?
Good God, that used to be me.
If you've been watching my videos since 2013, you know that I once did a video on my favorite boss battles in video games. And like most of my work pre-Mario Kart 8 Tracks list, it's become garbage over the years. Because of that, and the fact that I've improved in terms of videos and faced several more bosses, I'm going to make a better video on this topic. There are many factors that can make me love a battle, whether they serve as grand moments for the game's story, have set pieces that make them more fun to go through, just be plain fun to fight, among other reasons. I don't think I need to say anymore since the rules of my previous countdown apply here, so let's go ahead and do this topic justice. Since I ended things with the boss in the Azure Striker Gunvolt series last time, it's pretty neat that I'm beginning this list with a boss from that series this time. And if you know my preferences, I think you'd probably guess that I'm going to pick a boss from Azure Striker Gunvolt 2, and you'd be absolutely correct. The second game really took a step up in terms of bosses by just making them more fun to fight overall, and in some cases tried some new scenarios which made them stand out even more, which brings me to this adept, Azrock. Now granted, while the fight with him normally is a good deal of fun, there is something interesting they did right after you fight him. He runs away inside this giant robot he uses to fight you, and when you chase him, he whips out a big surprise. Oh, yes! That's how you hook the attention of the player right there. From out of nowhere, Azrock whips out a giant mech known as the Grand Torta for an amazing time. This thing is massive, and for an early game boss, it came packing all the heat you can imagine. Giant arms that shoot heat-based bullets, mortar cannons that leave exploding residue, and giant lasers. Because these attacks come in at a constant rate, you'll need to utilize your movement abilities and your evasion in order to evade the onslaught. But it doesn't come at the cost of flaws making you take unnecessary potshots, especially since you fight this boss relatively early in the game. It just simply has attacks requiring good judgment and a cool head in order to avoid. Admittedly, this is a very easy fight, as all you need to do is just shoot at the cockpit part where Azrock is until he's dead. But the fight makes up for it with being so much fun and utilizing your abilities in ways that's actually kind of neat. And I actually feel good for you if you chose to go after Azrock first when playing the game, because this is a good fight that sets the tone for the rest of the game. Yeah, I get to talk about Freedom Planet after a while, and it's on a positive list! With this being one of my favorite indie titles, I'm surprised it honestly took me this long to praise something from it. Granted, part of that was because of procrastination, but I digress. There's a lot this game excels in, and judging from the title of this video, I do happen to have a favorite boss in the game, and it's the Royal Panther from the level Fortune Knight. Let me put things this way, after going through one of the best levels in the game, which by the way is the third level in the game, so that says something about how much it doesn't hold back on the awesome factor even in the early stages, you get to fight a boss where you're constantly running and trying to whack its face, all the while dodging the many projectiles thrown at you, and as the fight goes on, you get to have your friends assist you, getting in some bonus damage, or healing you. Meanwhile, the boss gets more unpredictable with its attacks, and the background goes anime, making the fight look even more dazzling, and if you're playing as Carol or Mila, you get to fight her while riding a motorcycle and airplane, respectively. Yes, please! This is not a complicated battle by any means, as you really do just whack the Royal Panther's face senseless until it bites the dust. But like the Grand Torta, this boss makes up for that with being so much fun for what it does, and for being the point where I went from really liking the game to absolutely loving it. And while other bosses in the game are undeniably great, I find myself gravitating towards this one for just how much fun it is. Man, when people go wild with how fun something can be, they can create something truly amazing, let me tell you. One way Metroid Prime 3 had my attention from the beginning was the introduction of 3 bounty hunters that became Samus' allies, all of whom had their fun quirks, especially this one, Rundus. Rundus especially got to me because not only was he the friendliest ally Samus had, but he also came in to save her out of dire situations. So when he and the other 2 hunters went missing, and when your mission for the whole game begins, I hoped he would be okay, and while I turned out to be alive, things don't exactly turn for the happier side. Man, I was really getting attached to Rundus before, and this predicament just had to go and possess him, forcing me to fight him. Dark Samus, that is incredibly inconsiderate, and I am ashamed of you. But when it comes to actually fighting Rundus, it is truly a well-crafted fight. Sure, all you have to do is just shoot at Rundus until you can rip off his ice armor and unload on him, but whatever you can do, Rundus has an answer to. He can use Ice Blast to freeze you at close range, fly on ice rails to give himself an edge in mobility, use giant ice boulders to throw, or even use a giant ice flail that can do massive damage if you're not careful. Even though this is one of the earliest bosses in the game, it leaves a huge impression by how much fun and feelsy things will be. Fun for the fact that this fight keeps you excited and waiting for what Rundus will do next, and feelsy for you actually having to take down someone you bonded with. Rundus was a great friend in the screen time he was given, so seeing him succumb to this and for you to beat him down, it really makes you feel sad for him, which is further amplified when the fight is over as Rundus' ice powers go haywire and Ice Stalagmite impales him. Seeing him go through this really hits hard and makes this moment and the entire fight much more memorable, though not very satisfying to finish. I feel bad for Starvox Zero. Yes, I can understand why it didn't do so hot in the end, but I found the game itself to be really fun, really replayable, and overall, really well designed. And the bosses are a big contributing factor to that. They're not all winners, the Aquarosa bite is bare left at the bottom of the ocean, but the grand majority are really fun to fight, including the various Starwolf duels. These were a ton of fun because they really went wild with the concept of dueling something equal to you in terms of skill, while providing a fun and fair challenge. And this was at its absolute best during the one-on-one battle with Wolf in the Lone Wolf Challenge. Every single Starwolf battle had one thing in common, the fact that either you had some pals on your side or the fact that they have pals on their side. But this time, no, it's just you and Wolf and no one else, which is actually really cool. Since you don't have anyone backing you up during this fight, the game wants to see how good you really are with the R-Wing. Wolf will constantly be on your tail and fire shots with really good accuracy and even start charging at you when he gets below half health, so you need to constantly be on guard for what Wolf is going to do next so you don't wipe out, and not let the power-up Rob gives you go to waste. So in the end, there's not a whole lot to this boss, but the way it challenges your knowledge of the game, combined with how personal the fight is, makes it the most enjoyable battle in the game by far. Also, whoever designed the walker form for the Wolfen was clearly inspired by Metal Gear Rising. Platinum, you never cease to amaze me. Speaking of Metal Gear Rising, some of you may recognize this boss as one of the top contenders on my old favorite bosses list, and even though that list is unviewable, especially by today's standards, I still can't help but love this battle. Sam was always a target of interest throughout the game, since he basically sliced off Ryan's eye and arm at the beginning of the game, and has acted as a side obstacle in some cases. And near the end of the game, you finally get to settle a score with him in a ninja vs samurai battle on the Sunset Horizon, out in the middle of nowhere. And that's only the beginning of why this fight is great. Sam may not have the most devastating attacks in the world, but he can combo you very easily and the damage from each swipe stacks up. Doesn't help that Sam moves and attacks insanely quickly, so you need to keep up with him so he doesn't take you by surprise and throw you around the battlefield. And believe it or not, this is actually emphasized when you knock away his blade near the halfway point, because Sam can easily use martial arts to swat you away and throw you in a random direction if you attack carelessly, or throw you down to the ground should he successfully charge at you. So it would be wise not to let him reunite your face with the earth. And when you get around to the last third of the fight, Sam gets his blade back and attacks much more aggressively than when the fight started. It's a challenging fight, but when you finally finish him off, it's actually kind of subtle. Instead of shredding him like you do with other bosses in the game, you just daze him and stab him in the stomach, ending the battle. And a nice detail is that Ryan actually honors Sam as a good warrior in the cutscene afterwards, even as far as sheathing his blade. That shows that not only did Sam and Ryan each believe that the other was a talented fighter, but each of them had good ideals, and that this fight was a test to see whose were better. And that truly makes this a great battle. Sam, for as little cyborg enhancements as you had, you sure impressed me and almost every player of Metal Gear Rising. Great job. Even though the hype surrounding Kid Icarus Uprising died down a while ago and some more divisive opinions have been said about the game, I still can't help but love it. It's still an amazingly fun game with some funny and clever writing, fun gameplay, and a robust selection of bosses. Sure, they may be really simple in concept, but in execution they provide some fun times. Unless it's a generator fight, in which case those got the short end of the stick. However, as great as these bosses are, I lean more towards the bosses that included some kind of stake or some kind of extra catch to make the battle more exciting, which is a big reason as to why I'm putting the Palutena battle on here again. After going through a story arc of the game of learning that the one you served grew a sudden distaste in humans, gaining a chariot, shattering a barrier, and going through arguably the best level in the game, the actual battle with Palutena 100% delivers on pure excitement. Unlike a lot of the previous bosses, this one actually has a special gimmick to it. The creature possessing Palutena, the Chaoskin, is present in the arena, so you have to look for it and shoot away at it in order to win the battle. Since the Chaoskin is invisible, you have to utilize what you've learned about Uprising's mechanics in order to track it down. And even though Palutena will attempt to make you attack her instead with several powerful light attacks, you can't shoot at her too much, otherwise she'll die and you'll get an instant game over. and even when you find the Chaos Skin, it'll attempt to skitter around the arena to get away from you, and will hide behind Palutena so you can't use any sort of offense. It's a really fun battle that makes great use of Uprising's mechanics, and has a strong sense of excitement since you're fighting to save the one you serve. Many of Uprising's bosses are great, but this one goes the full extra mile to make itself an especially strong battle. Choosing a boss from one of the two Bayonetta games to be on here was no easy task. There are so many good ones like Sapientia, Eustita, and the Jean battles from the first game, and Gamora, Valor, and the Masked Lumen from the second game. But in the end, I settled on a boss from Bayonetta 2. A boss that has the soul of Bayonetta's best friend and must be defeated to get that soul back. Simple setup, absolutely insane execution. If you think a battle between a sexy witch and a sexy demon is awesome in concept, boy, will you be taken in for a wild ride. Alron here has attacks similar to that of your own. She's very agile and can sneak up on you with some attacks that can combo you easily. So the name of her game is just paying attention to what she'll do and use your abilities to counter her. Yet despite her speed and her ability to combo you, she gives the perfect window of opportunity for you to dodge and strike. She never attacks too quickly to the point where she gets cheap hits in, but she never takes too long so that the battle becomes a joke. This is a battle that is designed in a way where, while she can't cheat due to flaws, you can't slack off either, especially given that you fight her pretty late in the game. However, that's only phase 1. In phase 2, Alron mutates into a scorpion-like creature, attacks much more aggressively, and hits a lot harder. It's here where the game wants to see how good you really are, and you feel like the boss is not holding back anymore. Combine a dangerous throw with an environment that's being ripped apart and much more sinister music playing, and you get the feeling that you are going to die! Which honestly makes sense considering that you're fighting to save your best friend, and thus you cannot afford to slip up. I will admit that this is probably not one of the more eye-catchingly beautiful battles in the game, but it makes up for that with the amazing scenario and how fun and challenging it is. And for a game as insane and fun as Bayonetta 2, what more can you really ask for? Oh hi Eggman, good to see you again! Yeah, I praised the ever-living heck out of the Ed Dragoon battle from Sonic Unleashed in my favorite Sonic Bosses video, but I know a good chunk of you haven't seen it, so why not? A fight with Eggman as the Werehog sounds a bit off-putting since every boss in Unleashed just has a certain pattern, with normal Sonic fighting Eggman's creations and Werehog Sonic being the crap out of Darkrai's pawns. But since Eggman is responsible for Sonic's Werehog form, it not only makes sense, but it's actually something kind of warranted, since it shows that one of Sonic's conditions that Eggman is responsible for can be used against him. And when it comes to the actual battle with his creation, the Ed Dragoon, oh man, does it hit all the sweet spots you can imagine. As you fall towards the very core of the planet, Eggman is unloading his entire arsenal in your direction. Fire bullets, ice blasts, an electric drill, and his entire infantry are some of many things you've got to watch out for. And since you're the Werehog, you can't exactly go fast, avoid things, and boop the machine with your spines. You have to spend time pounding away at it in order for it to malfunction, giving you a chance to actually tear it apart. And it feels great to be tearing this thing apart piece by piece, especially when it's done by some of the game's better QuickTime events. Even when Eggman gets more desperate with his attacks, and when he destroys platforms you're standing on with his drill, the goal of the battle remains the same. So you'd better not be rusty with the Werehog. Ultimately, what pulls this battle through is the amount of build-up it has had since the beginning of the game, and the actual execution of the battle being so much fun and satisfying. And I think Sega knew this battle was brilliant, considering it came back for an amazing battle in Sonic Generations, and a decent battle in Sonic Forces. This is by far one of Eggman's best outings as a boss, and it's pretty easy to see why. Too bad the boss after it had to go and be a poor sack of crap. One thing about Nier Automata worth noting is that when it kept going, things got more exciting. It started out pretty good, introducing mechanics you'll be using, but the game didn't start getting into the amazing category until the amusement park area. This area was a total surprise for how beautiful and fun it was. It showed that things aren't really so black and white when it comes to the evading robots. And hey, what better way to capitalize on that than to have a boss that shows this as well? Just when I thought the surprises wouldn't stop, the battle with Beauvoir comes along and just blows me away. It may seem like it's just a shoot and slash the thing senseless at first, but there are many things that make this battle a grand time. Beauvoir will constantly be barraging you with blades coming out of her dress, shoot lasers all over the floor, and pop out many projectiles that will constantly have you on your toes. And when she reaches half health, she'll actually surround you with weaponized corpses and fellow androids, which you were searching for in this entire area. The presence of these things makes things even more intense, along with Beauvoir attacking faster and more radically, putting you through hacking minigame sequences should you get hit. And the extra icing on the cake is that there's actually more to this boss than other bosses in the game. Beauvoir isn't a robot that's just here to fight. She wanted to become more beautiful so that her life can become more than just an average robot. But no one admired her, so she grew lonely. And it's a shame that in the game, she's treated like every other robot by the main characters, and I can't help but feel bad for her. She deserved more, but she got less. But at least we can go and admire her for this one battle. Also, shout out to whoever made her battle theme a beautiful song. It's a joy to listen to, it really fits the atmosphere of the fight, and it almost feels like it's conveying Beauvoir's story. And since that all came out of one of the first bosses you fight in the game, that's truly admirable. Well, it's pretty neat to see good old Bowser get on here. With how long the Mario series has been going, it's only natural for a villain as famous as Bowser to have numerous battles, and oh boy do they vary in terms of quality. And while the bad fights with Bowser stick out like a sore thumb, when Bowser has a good battle, he really kicks things up a notch. Which brings us to the game that the Bowser battle I chose for this list hails from, Mario and Luigi Dream Team. Yes, this game has issues with its pacing. Sure, some of the bosses in the game were on the boring and annoying side, but I felt rewarded for reaching the fight with the Giant Bowser. Talk about the perfect send-off to a great concept. The giant battles in general were my favorite part of the whole game, for implementing 3DS hardware well and just being a fun spectacle to play through. And in this battle with Giant Bowser, everything that the Giant Battles did well is brought together in one tremendous event. Unlike other Bowser battles where he basically towers over you, you're on his level this time. This is a fight where you have to take Bowser up close and personal, get over the pressure he tries to exert on you, and fight back on him. Which, by the way, is kinda cool since the one taking him on is Luigi, who is normally scared of scenarios like this, but has developed his own sense of willpower to face his fears. To me, this is the best way they could have capped this off. Bowser will always be keeping the pressure on you, whether it be through his power or his army assisting, so in order to put that pressure on him, you need to choose the right move at the right time, pay attention to what you need to block or dodge, and utilize your environment to do more damage to him and push him back. And a lot of these are just exhilarating to witness. I mean, come on! There are points in the fight where Luigi just grabs an airship to gain an aerial advantage, and other points where he throws Bowser into his own fortress! And, oh yeah, the end where Bowser becomes bigger and tries to stomp on you, Luigi literally just lifts up his foot and throws him into the lava! Just... holy crap! This is a glorious battle that does an excellent job of being a final test of your giant battle abilities and thrills you with just how much is going on and how much happens. Simply put, this Bowser battle is a dream come true. Xenoblade's bosses are not bad overall, although the stinkers really do smell, but most of them are just nothing to write home about. But I've noticed that the better bosses in the game have a tendency to have a bigger impact on the plot, and my choice does this too. Near the end of the game, after confronting Ego, one of Xenoblade's main villains, to stop his madness and look for a more peaceful solution, he goes off the deep end and becomes the new soul of the Mechonis to complete his job of eradicating the Bionis. Sometime later, and you finally get to confront him in the core of the Mechonis while he controls the strongest Mechon ever, Yaldabaoth. A boss that is not only one of the most significant in the story, but also a boss that managed to make the gameplay stand out, which is something most bosses in Xenoblade don't do. As you pound away at Yaldabaoth in order to make him stop his rampage, he can unleash several attacks that can screw you over if you're not careful, and he's also immune to almost every status element in the game like Break, Topple Daze, and many others, so the goal is just to get as much damage as you can and stay alive. But when the boss is at half health, the battle will change completely. Yaldabaoth will completely stop attacking you and charge up an attack to unleash on the Bionis itself. As the boss becomes invincible, you're on a 2-minute time limit to go around to each of the 3 pillars, helping Yaldabaoth charge his power and take them out. This part of the battle is tense because you really have to get a move on and destroy the pillars within the time limit, or everything that you have fought for so far will be for nothing. All the places you visited on the Bionis, all the people you met, gone. Though thankfully the time limit is not too short so this part isn't cheap, and not too long so that this part becomes pathetically easy, which is why stopping the attack and getting your chance to take down Yaldabaoth afterwards is all the more satisfying. On top of all that, the way the battle ends is just right. After Shulk has Ego pinned down, he gets stuck in a dilemma on whether to kill him as vengeance for all he did, or let him live and follow his own advice on a peaceful solution. And what follows afterwards is the moment where Shulk and Ego come to fully understand one another. They both have suffered heavy losses. They both got urges for revenge. But Shulk enlightens himself and Ego that everyone is willing to come to a compromise and bring peace to the nations of Bionis and Mechonis. It's actually a very touching moment that really enhances both Shulk's and Ego's character, and brings the game to...
Dixon? Huh. You shouldn't have done that, little brat.
Well, crap just had to go and screw things up, didn't you, Dixon? Great, now we have a god who wants to destroy the world on the loose. Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. When it comes to choosing bosses for a list like this, choosing a boss from the Fire Emblem series isn't all that easy, because in terms of gameplay, all the bosses in every game are just slightly stronger units with better stats and maybe an extremely dangerous weapon. So how can you choose a favorite Fire Emblem boss battle? Well, in this case, have the rep itself be a memorable character, have the story built up to the encounter, and have the overall battle have a huge impact on the story. But before I get to my choice, I need to give its overall setup. After the tragedy that happens in Hoshido shortly after your avatar's arrival, and after the Nohrian army shows up to invade, the time has come for you to choose a side. And if you choose Hoshido, the path of birthright, and face the disappointment of the Crown Prince of Nor, Xander, that's when you know that at some point, you'll have to battle him face to face, which is immediately sad to think about since Xander was your avatar's big brother and mentor even before the events of Fates unfolded. Xander appears many times throughout the Birthright route, and it's clear that despite the war between Nor and Hoshido clearly having an effect on many people, including that of his own family, he still pledges loyalty to his kingdom and is willing to end it to finally unite his family since that's what the other siblings want. And in Chapter 26, the time has come for you to settle things with him. And it is one of very few gaming moments that has legitimately made me cry. Not only is the emotion of you having to fight your previous elder brother and mentor there, but at least the youngest one in your family is objective to the fight happening and wants the family to be a true family again, Avatar included and all. Unfortunately, Xander's not listening and wants to defend his homeland, so Elise makes the ultimate sacrifice.
I shall defend my homeland!
She was so objective to the fight that she takes a blow from the legendary blade Siegfried and dies! Just to get Xander to stop fighting, and even after all that, and after both your avatar and Xander have an emotional breakdown, Xander still wants the fight to go underway, and with little choice left, your avatar obliges. Now, in terms of gameplay, this battle doesn't do a whole lot to stand out, in that you just beat Xander like you do with every other boss in the game. But along with the map you fight him on being really well designed, with giving you the option to proceed with the fight as it should be, or break the rules and have others attack Xander, the story and emotional value are what make this battle memorable. Most because, despite the fact that Xander wanted to remain loyal to his nation, he's not really evil, unlike Garen, the King of Nor, and the very reason you chose Hoshido in the first place. When the fight ends, Xander reveals that he only fought you and caused this out of obligation. He never really wanted to fight you, but because of his position as Crown Prince of Nor, he was forced to do so. It's easily one of the most emotional parts of Fates' whole story, and one of its strongest plot points. It depicts tragedy that can occur when the positions you gain can determine what you'll do in the future, and that's what this whole battle is, a tragedy! A tragedy of how a position can make you lose members of your own family and fight someone you bonded with, and what else can occur. This is why I adore this battle. It depicts loss of loved ones fantastically, serves as one of Fates' best points of storytelling, and probably sets up the two-phase final battle with Garen in the following chapters. And believe me, this heart-wrenching experience made the Garen battle a lot more satisfying. I wasn't expecting a Tails boss to be this high. While the Tails ears can make a great battle every once in a while, most of the bosses range from decent at best to flat out bad. You had every opportunity to make the Bose battle satisfying and you failed to do so! Why? Thankfully, Tales of Xillia 2 had great battles much more often. Whether they were just fun to fight, did a great job in advancing the plot, feature a big moment for one or more characters, or a combination of the three. And the boss I'm picking for this list combines all three spectacularly. This boss goes by the name of Victor. As soon as the game starts, it's evident that Victor, father of El Marda, is going to have some important value later in the game, thanks to El being one of the biggest influences behind the game's plot, and for a mysterious thing he does to his enemies as soon as the cutscene he has at the start ends. And throughout other parts of the story, El constantly references him, but only by Daddy. She never calls him out by name, which makes you more curious to meet him. Flash forward to one of the last required fractured dimensions, basically an alternate version of reality that leeches life away from the real world, and Victor is met at long last. After a nice meal with him, that's when the exposition dump really happens. Turns out that the El you've been traveling with throughout the entire game is from this alternate reality, and has the power to manipulate space and time, which explains how you were able to travel between dimensions, and he has his own agenda. To travel to the Prime Dimension to wish for his life to start over so he and El can live without a condition I'll get to later. But the thing is, Victor is actually a future fractured version of Ludger Kresnik, and because two versions of one being cannot coexist in the same dimension, Victor plans on killing Ludger and taking his place. And after El expresses her fear of her dad doing that, and when Victor pulls out his completed Chromatus, that's when the party really gets started. Because Victor is a version of Ludger, everything that you are able to do, he can do just as well. And considering that you may still have some arts to learn by this point in the game, Victor may have a few more arts than you. and boy does he put them to good use. He is very aggressive, packing in ridiculous combos and attacks that hit really hard. But he also uses his attacks to play defensively so he doesn't get comboed to death so easily. He's also the only boss in the game that has access to 2 Mystic Arts, both of which you need to look out for. But at the same time, the fight doesn't feel cheap in the slightest. This is because there are opportunities for you to catch your breath in case someone is in trouble, and at this point in the game, you should have enough arts to form your own combos to take him down, though you also need to watch when he's going to retaliate, make every move count, and make sure none of your items or TP go to waste. This fight is very hard, but it doesn't require you to be perfect, just capable, which is fitting considering what's at stake and how far you are in the game. But honestly, one of the best parts about this fight is actually how it ends. The reason why Victor wanted to start his life over is because after a character uses the Chromatus too much, they become a Divergence Catalyst, the source of all fracture dimensions. And after Victor makes one last desperation move, he dies by Luger's or his own hands, depending on whatever you choose. Honestly, this was a tragic scene considering that all Victor wanted was just to be with his daughter. But as fate would have it, it wasn't meant to be. And this traumatizes Els throughout the rest of the game, which honestly sets up a part of the climax very well. So in general, this fight is absolutely brilliant. The build-up, the stakes, the way it plays, the conclusion, and that sweet music all make this fight have absolutely excellent payoff. Even though Roxas may not be my absolute favorite character in the Kingdom Hearts series, his story is undoubtedly sad. He wasn't supposed to exist in the first place, and he lived a pretty sappy life as part of Organization 13. Even after rebelling, he still couldn't get a better life, losing one of his best friends and getting captured and put into a virtual reality. The whole time, he didn't have his own identity and wanted to become a full-fledged person, which makes the boss fight with him in Kingdom Hearts 2 all the more amazing. After Axel helps Sora enter the world that never was, Roxas appears before him and challenges him to a battle that is one of the best examples of a one-on-one duel of equals. Roxas is incredibly fast and can combo you easily if he manages to catch you, but you can block almost every single one of his attacks and counterattack with your own combos, though you still need to watch yourself as he can spring back into action pretty quickly, especially in the air. As the fight goes on, Roxas will start using various powerful light attacks and add in several light pillars to previous attacks you used. If you manage to win a struggle against him, you can actually use his Keyblades to make the battle easier, though Roxas is not completely vulnerable. But what really makes the fight is the ending. It basically encapsulates about how Roxas feels about his own crappy life as he learns what was supposed to happen. It's an incredibly touching moment that makes you really feel sorry for him and want to give him something better. The entire fight just makes you feel every emotion that Roxas is feeling, and on its own is an immensely fun battle that puts everything you know about Kingdom Hearts 2's combat system to the test. Poor Roxas. Before we get to my number 1 pick, here are some honorable mentions. The final Vorkin battle from the Wonderful 101, Captain Vladimir from No More Heroes 2, King Dice from Cuphead, the final Black Knight battle from Shovel Knight, the final end battle from Pokemon Black and White, Ash from Tales of the Abyss, Silver the Hedgehog from Sonic Generations, and Operator 210 from Nier Automata. Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire really improved upon everything about the original Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, and added so much more. Mechanics that were introduced in Pokemon X and Y were added to make the adventure more up-to-date, more Pokemon were added in the main adventure to make the team options even greater, and more characters were given more development, with one of the best examples being one of your rivals, Wally. In the originals, he had little to no character and had no bearing on the story, but in ORAS, they changed him for the better. Wally's still a sickly young boy, but they actually managed to make him more likable by showing that he does have more motivation to go out on a journey, and that he's willing to get stronger and to follow in your footsteps. This development comes to full fruition at Victory Road, where Wally shows you how strong he's got because of you. And it is glorious! When I first saw Wally say that, and when this theme started playing, I was in awe. To legit see someone go from a shy person to a determined trainer is truly something beautiful to see, especially when it's someone who really needed that sort of growth. Gameplay-wise, yes, it plays out like every normal Pokemon battle, with Wally mostly using the same team he had in the original Gen 3, except for replacing his Gardevoir with a Mega Gallade. I'll get to why I like that part later, but I really enjoy it because Wally fights how you expect him to, not by using any sort of patience-trying gimmick heavily reliant on RNG, nor having anything too strong for that point in the game, but by fighting you with what he can use and giving everything he's got, which really shows his growth as a character. Wally also shows us by all he's managed to accomplish ever since you beat him in Mauville City. He managed to form his own team, get all the badges, and get his own Mega Stone, which is why his Gallade can Mega Evolve, by the way. Not because he wanted to be the best trainer ever, but because you inspired him to become a worthy opponent. Similar to how throughout the game that you wanted to prove yourself to opponents like your father Norman, Wally wants to do the very same. And the full battle, along with this godly music, reflect upon all his development and his overall opinion on you as a trainer. You helped him start his journey, and your adventure inspired him, so he wants to follow you to the very end. And despite you beating him down, he accepts that he has growth left to achieve, and shows the impact you left on him. While other rivals certainly have their own deep arcs, most of the time, Wally has by far the biggest one, and he's been the rival to overall provide the most fun battle in the series, and show how the player's actions throughout a game can impact its characters, and that's why Wally's number 1. While many other factors I love in a boss battle are present here, this battle actually showed what Wally's feeling and got the best portrayal it could have gotten. And given how non-existent Wally's character was in the original games, this is one heck of an accomplishment.
I'm the Lightning Ripper, and I think the Game Freak was proud of what they did with Wally, considering that he returned as a bonus trainer in the battle tree in Pokemon Sun and Moon, as well as their Ultra counterparts. Though I must ask, why is he suddenly around the 20 to 30 age mark when he looks approximately the same? Time can be difficult to tell in these Pokemon games.